Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to go over chapters 1 and 2 of your book. I thought I was going to make a one video overview of the first 4 chapters that we are covering this week, but I thought that was a lot of information in one nugget, so I'm going to break it down into 2. Okay. Chapter 1 is really straightforward. So if this is your first economics class and you're wondering what economics is, have no fear because that is what chapter 1 is all about, and that's what we're about to dive into. And a lot of people come into this class not knowing what we will be studying. So just remember that we are all, and it kind of really helps us relate to it more and breaks it down. But remember that we are all economists, okay? The basic definition or baseline of economics is, we as humans are all faced with choices that are having to do with scarcity. And scarcity is a term that you will have to remember. It's the baseline of economics as well. It is, kind of what our economy is based on. But it's, we have unlimited wants and we have limited resources. And so resources are a lot of things. It can be time and money, which we will spend most of the time focusing on, tools, and then land, raw materials. There's all kinds of things that fall into resources. So, economics is just how are we going to use our limited resources? What are we going to buy? How are we going to do it? How are we going to decide? All right. And just think as an individual, how you have to make decisions, how you want to spend your time. You have an hour. Should you go for a run? Should you read a book? Should you take a nap? Whatever that may look like. What should you eat? Do you want tacos? Do you want a burger? You could be, I have $100 and what should I spend it on? Should I go shopping for clothes? Should I buy school supplies? Should I buy food? Whatever that looks like to you. So that is, kind of what scarcity is. These are all economic decisions. So just make sure that you really fully grasp that concept. Remember when you're making decisions that every yes you say also comes with a no. So in this class, in economics in general, macro and micro, you'll talk a lot about opportunity cost, right? So that's something you really need to remember. And that is just trade-offs. If I decide that I want to eat tacos, then that means that I'm not going to be eating something else. So since this is a micro class, we're really going to focus on individual trade-offs, how we as consumers make decisions, and how individual businesses make decisions as well. And so once again, every choice you make has an economic aspect because you are to spend your very scarce time and dollars, and to make those decisions, you're trying to decide how to do that. And so in your book, it also talks about division of labor, right? And so looking for ways to really make our processes better and essentially become more efficient. So if you are a great chef, like if we work in a restaurant and you are a very good cook, then you will probably be cooking. And then maybe I'm very good with people. And so I might be working the front, getting people's orders, taking money, things like that. All right. So with the two of us, that makes the processes a lot more efficient. That is all part of, economics. All right. So in your book, it talks about micro versus macro. And, what is the difference? And I had mentioned earlier that micro focuses on more individual, and macro focuses more on like broader societal choices. So, but they are, think of them as two different sides of the same coin. Okay. Micro, small, as we know, micro means small and macro means big. All right. And so as micro, we're focusing on actions within the economy, within households, workers, businesses. And then, macro in itself looks at the economy as a whole. Okay. So think more broad issues, growth of production, number of unemployed people, in the inflationary increases that we are experiencing currently, government deficits, exports, imports, the levels of those, all of that. All right. So same economy, different viewpoint. different viewpoint. And so those are the big differences between micro and macro. They do go a lot hand in hand, obviously. In fact, if you look at the macro OpenStax book, the first 4 chapters are the same. So laying out the basics of economics and then kind of getting into its own niches. All right. First 4 chapters of this book are really the basics of economics. What is it? The analysis, scarcity. I'm going to cover that. Chapters 3 and 4 are all about supply and demand. Demand, how much we want. Supply, how much is available for us to be had. All right. So that's the difference between those two. And so we'll dig into that a little bit later. So focusing on macro, this is a micro class, but focusing on macro, introducing the different introduces different tools that our policymakers have. So it talks about monetary policy, all right? Focuses on the Fed, or the Federal Reserve, who is our central bank, all right? They decide the cost of money. How much money is going to cost, or how much is it worth, all right? So think your interest rates, all right? How much does it cost to borrow money? And borrowing money to buy things that we want or need that we might not have money for at the time. So the bankers, those bankers make those decisions, and that all goes into monetary policy. So when you think more of scarcity, you think we don't have all the money that we need to buy that we need to buy the things, so that's why we borrow money. So that's kind of how scarcity plays into monetary policy, right? Then it talks about fiscal policy, not physical, fiscal, F-I-S-C-A-L. And this is the government's ability to actually tax citizens and then spend that money, spend that dollar. So when you hear, oh, that's where my tax dollars are going to, that is what that is referring to, right? So here in the United States, Congress is responsible for that. They set the tax rates, they set our spending budget, and they're all part of that legislative branch that is overtaxing and spending, all right? And so your book really talks about different theories and models, and how we as economists use those to picture complex processes and systems, all right? And so in your book, and I believe I noticed it's the figure 1.6, it talks about the circular flow, all right? So think of, if you're looking in your book or you're looking at the diagram, that circular flow, money is to our economy like blood is to our human body, all right? So we have different organs, we have different parts that need to function, and blood kind of flows in throughout it and in between, all right? It allows our body to survive, sustain, it makes us sustain and live, right? And so that's how money is to our economy. It works the same way. So you have to have money flowing throughout the economy, or it dies, or it breaks down. And so as you're looking at your circular flow model or diagram, if you look at the outside, that's the goods and market services made by the firms, all right? They sell us the goods and services, and we give them our payment, all right? And then if you look in the interior, so we as the household sell our labor, okay? And then they in turn give us wages, right? Or they pay us in wages, sorry, salaries, benefits, retirements. I'm so sorry. And whatever that looks like for you as far as what you get. And then in turn, what do we do with those wages? We turn around and buy more goods and services. So it is a flow. That is called the circular flow. So sorry. Anyways, I like it tickle my throat. All right, so it talks about the 3 types of economies, all right? So there's 3 basic types. The first one it mentions is your traditional, all right? So you think you're family-centered, your families pass down jobs, really not a lot of trade. Think more like underdeveloped countries, and an example might be like goat farmers, right? Maybe your dad was a goat farmer, and that's what you just grew up doing, and it was passed down. Not a ton of progress, and really a family unit, a lack of economic development in those type of economies. Then it talks about command economies, and when we go back to traditional economies. Think this is a more common in like Asia, Africa, South America, places like that. Command economies, the economic effort is really devoted to goals that are passed down from like a ruler or a ruling party or ruling class. They tell everyone what they're going to do, right? So big macro goals are passed down from the ruling party. This in like what we know tend to what we call as communism. And so North Korea is a good example of this, as well as Cuba. All right, so the government decides what's going to be produced, how it's going to be produced, when it's going to be produced. They set the wages, etc. All right. Then we have our market economy. So this is all the decision making is decentralized. So I see a need, I go create a product that meets that need. Then I sell it, and the market determines the price. There is no government regulation when it comes to market economy. So in a pure market economy, and remember, like in a market, buyers and sellers, this is where they come together to figure out what needs to be produced and the price, and what price for that particular item, right? And so individual ability to really convert resources into things that are valuable for society. So that's all part of market economy. And then the third one is a mixed economy. So it's a bit of both. And that is what the United States is. We are a mixed economy. And it's kind of fun to think about. Do you think we are closer to a command economy? Do you think we're closer to a market economy? Just kind of, I like to kind of get your mind going in that direction. We have government control. And some people might think we have too much government control, but we really do value innovation. We want those markets to work. And just a side note, Hong Kong, I think is I would think one of the strongest free markets that I'm aware of, or at least as of today. All right. So you're getting closer to the end of chapter 1. It talks about rules of the game. So if we did not have rules of the game, it would be like playing a game Candyland or Chutes and Ladders or something with a child, right? You think there's rules, but they kind of get made up as they go, and then they change rules, etc. And that's not really how economy should work, or it doesn't always work the best. So rules of the game really do make economies more stable. So think tax laws, consumer laws, fraud protection laws, all of these things go into rules of the game. They help us plan, they help us enforce, and they really help us better execute our economies. Toward the end of the chapter, it talks about globalization, so expanding these connections throughout the world. And we will talk more about globalization toward the end of our book or the end of our semester. But the more options we have, the more we can do when it comes to globalization. So think it talks about imports, what we bring into our country, exports, what we're giving out, and GDP, our gross domestic product. And I'm not going to get into this really too much right now because we will cover it at the end of the semester. But that is chapter 1 in a nutshell. And because I'm trying to keep your videos like at a certain amount of time so you can process or watch some now, and if you want to watch some later, I think I'm actually going to cut this off for chapter 1 and make a separate one for chapter 2. And then maybe I'll do the same for 3 and 4 so you can kind of watch at your leisure, or if you want to focus on one chapter at a time. But anyways, that is chapter 1. I will get into chapter 2 in a little bit. And I will be talking with you soon.